And with his team, he now implements a universal MTP POR solution for the Xenon Engineering Studio. Please join our stage, Christian. Come to me and show us what you have done in the last months.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to show and demonstrate our current and ongoing developments regarding MTP. But before I'm gonna start with the demonstration, let me kick this off with a short presentation. So at the beginning of the session, we have heard the advantages which are seen by our customer Merck using the MTP standard, as well as we have seen a short introduction video made by Namur. So I would like to continue from that point on, and I would like to show and demonstrate later on how the Xenon world and the MTP world can be matched and combined with each other. So to do that, let me again mention three main keywords here in this MTP area. One of them obviously is MTP itself, which basically is module type packaging. And it's not just only the standard, but it's also a file. It's a file which is describing all relevant interfaces within a unit. And such a unit could be a simple equipment, but could also be a complete machine, for example. And that's actually what mentioned already Dr. Bamberg at the very beginning, that hardware vendors, so module suppliers who are creating those machines and equipments, they're not just only creating steel and iron anymore, but they also add the intelligence on top to it. And this intelligence is actually stored and placed in this MTP file. The next keyword I would like to mention is PIA, which is the process equipment assembly. Simply, you can think of an instance of the MTP itself. So the module supplier is creating a module or, as said, an equipment, and the PIA basically is the device itself, so the device which is running later on customer side. And finally, I also brought the third keyword with me, which you already have heard a couple of times, which is POL, so Process Orchestration Layer. The Process Orchestration Layer helps the customer to combine the devices on his side together with each other, and it allows him to do the graphical representation, but also to apply the communication between those devices. So, as we have realized those three main stages at COPA-DATA, we thought, hey, that actually fits quite good to our Smart Object technology, which was released a few Xenon versions ago. Because within the Smart Objects, our Smart Object template is basically the equivalent of MTP itself. As we have heard from Anita, within a Smart Object template, you can include different variables, functions, screens, whatever, and later on you simply instantiate this template and you will get a Smart Object, which basically can be represented by the PIA. And I guess you all know that Xenon basically is a visualization software, so displaying graphics, it's our core business, as well as bringing up all the communication between different devices. So as we realized that this basically is a perfect match, even though without using Tinder, we thought, how can we create a nice concept to bring all of this together and integrate it in Xenon? So in this slide, I really want to just introduce the concept very briefly, and I hope that you're going to see a bit more details later on during the demonstration. So the very first step, obviously, is we somehow need to have a possibility to read and interpret the MTP file itself. Sounds easy, is not that easy, because MTP itself is not the final standard yet, so it's still a standard in progress, and hopefully it gets released by the end of the year. And the second challenge is that not all of the MTP files are standard conform. So the application we are developing also would need to be a bit more tolerant to also allow and get the information out of the MTP files. So that's the MTP part, and of course now we somehow need to bring this MTP information to Zenon, which is basically the smart object template. So this means after reading the MTP file, we need to interpret all required variables, Zenon screens, recipes, and so on, and create them in Zenon as a smart object template. And finally, of course, we also want to offer our customers the possibility to simply orchestrate or basically link the devices with each other. And this should be possible also for people and persons who are not that familiar with the automation industry. So as we have heard, lots of the things at Merck are done on laboratories, so in R&D setups, which are more people focused on the pharma area and not automation engineers. So we really try to keep this application as easy as possible. And to demonstrate hopefully how easy this application is, I would like to switch now over to the application, which you can see now hopefully on my screen. It's actually the start screen of this application itself. After starting it, you will get asked to connect to a certain database. Why do we use this database? Because of course in your company maybe not just one person is working on MTP and smart object templates, but multiple persons are working together with each other, and so you might want to share your smart object templates and MTP files together, and maybe also different versions exist, so a certain synchronization should be possible. So you can actually use the local Zenon database or any other SQL server. So in my case, I just used the local one. And within this demonstration, I would like to focus now on those three topics, which basically are exactly those topics we have seen before in the concept. So the very first one is managing MTPs and smart object templates. If I'm gonna select that, I will get certain information coming from the database. So you will see here what kind of MTP files do already exist in the database and in which version they have been stored. So that's, for example, represented here. And the same for the smart object templates. So you're gonna see on the one hand side the version in the database, and on the other hand side the version in your current Zenon project. What else is shown? The vendor of the MTP file itself and who has done the last updates and when those updates have been made, especially important also for the pharma area. So now let's assume we want to add a new MTP file and we want to bring this now to our Zenon world. Basically, the only thing you need to do is click here this plus icon, and a new dialog opens where you need to select the MTP file itself. So let me just use here this simple mixer icon or file, which now is loaded by our application. And as you can see here, a short preview of the symbol which is used and defined in the MTP file itself. As said, quite easy as it only has one input and one output, or one source and sink as it's called in MTP. Then you can do here a definition of the name, and you can add certain comments. And on the lower part here on the left hand side, you're already gonna see an overview of the information coming from the MTP file. So for example, you're gonna see the version and of the standard which was used for creating the MTP file. You will also see here the creator who has created this MTP file and some other informations. For example, you will get here server information. In this case, it's an OPC UA server. Up to now, MTP does only support OPC UA, so it's not a big surprise. But what else you can see is the amount of tags which have been read and interpreted within the MTP file. Other things important, what we have heard from also Dr. Bamberg before, is the services which are included in the MTP file. So that's one of the basic intelligent settings and options here, which are also interpreted, and the services including their procedures. Yeah, to save up some time, I won't do now the import directly. I have already prepared this in the engineering studio, and I will just show this later on. So let me go back, and as you remember, we had another step which was mentioned in our keywords, which is the PAS, so the device management. So we somehow also need to create instances of a certain MTP file, which can be done with the help of this item. So again, you will see here the available MTP and SOT items in the database. And in this case, I already have prepared additional instances. So I called them simply mixer 1 to 3. If you would like to add now a new instance, again, simply hit here this plus icon, and you will get an additional item. Of course, you can then just change the name to whatever you would prefer. Up to now, it's not saved yet in the database. So after saving it in the database, you will also get here the notification who did the savings and when it has been saved. What else can be done here in this device administration is, on an instance level, you can also define which variables, for example, of an instance should be linked already to an zenon archive. So that's the one thing you could do here at the bottom, as well as you could also define server settings. In this case, again, it's the OPC UA server. So, for example, you want to define here already the namespace of this Mixer 4 instance. So now we have also done the instance management. This brings me actually to the last step, which is the process orchestration. So it is actually here the last or the fourth entry, and in my case, I don't have any orchestration layer done yet, so I also going to start from scratch showing this. And again, the plus icon leads me to the next window where I have the possibility to create now a new process orchestration. What you're going to see here on the left-hand side, it's basically all known MTP or SOT files with its versions. If you also do have instances of those MTP files, you can simply expand them, and you're also going to see if they're currently used or unused. So in my case, let's assume I simply also want to do an very easy orchestration. So I simply drag and drop now those 3 instances here to my process orchestration screen. Also zooming is possible, as Christoph has demonstrated it before in the Merck solution. And what you can do now here is combine the different devices with each other. You might gonna recognize certain differences here on the endpoints. So we do have round endpoints or sources or sinks, which are representing basically a logical output. So that's the logical connection between those devices. And you might also recognize here a square endpoint. That's basically the physical end or endpoints. Yeah. So physical means that's the real connection. Could be a pipe, for example, where certain media flows, water or compressed air or something like that. So of course you only can connect physical with physical endpoints, and you're not allowed to mix them with each other. So you will get here an error message at the bottom. If they are fit together, it will be marked as green, and you can do here your connections, and the same with the logical endpoints. So that's how the customers at the end would do their process orchestration. As said, no special zenon know-how or automation know-how is in this case required. And after this process orchestration, the customer itself can simply here create and generate the process screen, which would actually then instantiate all those smart objects in the Zenon project, as well as it will create the Zenon HMI screens according to this process orchestration. Speaking about HMI screens, may I just missed here one thing, because there is another view. So what we have currently seen, it's the logical view. As you might have recognized at the bottom, there is an HMI view, which is basically representing the HMI screen, so a Zenon screen. Why was it split up like that? Because MTP files, if you have different files, maybe the symbols do not always fit together and they have different resolutions. So therefore, what you could do here on this HMI view is you really can define the position as it should be drawn on the HMI screen. So therefore, you simply can select here one of those instances. As you can see, you also could define here a picture where it should be drawn, as well as you can define all the pixels where this object should be located. Okay, I also don't press now the generate button, as I would like to save some time, and in this case also we do have still work in progress. So let's just jump to the engineering studio, where I basically prepared this solution already. So within the engineering studio, we have now at the very beginning our smart object. So that's our mixer, which we have been importing before from the MTP file, converting it to the smart object template. In this mixer, we do have already all required variables coming from the MTP file, as well as we do have already the different screens for all the services. And for example, also here the process screen, where you might gonna recognize the symbol with the simple source and simple sink, so only one in and one output. If I'm gonna select now the project itself, I do have now here my template project, and inside of this template project I also have created already those 3 instances of the mixer. So mixer 1, 2 and 3. We have heard about released properties, so that's also possible, what Anita already mentioned, and some of those properties do already exist for the smart objects, and again that's definable later on. So what we see now, it's a complete template project, also including already the navigation and everything. So now I guess everyone is also keen and eager to see how this would look like now in the runtime. So therefore, let's change to the service engine. And within the service engine, we're gonna see here now an overview. That's already the overview of our process orchestration, what we have done. So what you can see now is the different mixer instances which are physically linked with each other. Of course, the logical linking is not displayed here because that's something done in the background in the PLC. If you would select now or click on one of those icons, you simply get here some feedback or some current values from the PLC. If you would have the authorization, of course, you can also change them. Yeah, so as said, that's basically the orchestration layer. But within our project or with our development, it's not just developing now this application, bringing the MTP to Zenon, but we also are creating now such a template project, as you can see now, where a certain navigation already exists. including certain standard information like who is logged in and a certain global alarm message list. But as well as we also wanted to have a possibility where all required informations about the smart object or about the MTP is included. So as you can see here in the header, there is a scroll-able screen which should represent and show all created process orchestration layers. So in my case, it's only one of them, and that's basically what we currently see. Knowing, as it was mentioned also by Dr. Bamberg, the intelligence is in the services and all the procedures coming with the MTP. Of course, we also want to have a generic solution to display all those services and procedures. So therefore, we have created here a service control menu, which basically is a screen that pops up here on the top right. And again, it's quite flexible, as this screen later on should list all instances of your smart objects. So in my case, I have those 3 mixers. I can now select one of them. The mixer itself will then display all its services, which in my case is only one service. It's the mixing service. And if I'm gonna click on that one, I'm gonna get all the information about that service. So I get the current status from the PLC, which looks similar to a state machine, as well as at the very bottom, I get here a list of parameters and procedures. And of course, this list again depends on the MTP file which has been used. So it's again scrollable, as we don't know how many procedures and parameters shall be used. And at the very bottom here, you can see then, depending on your selection, so let's assume we have now the target speed pulse and pulse procedure activated. So if I'm going to select this one, I also can define, or would be able now to define the settings of this procedure. And therefore, all the parameters for it, again, are listed at the very bottom, depending on the definitions done in the MTP file. Yeah, Marcus, I hope you got the first impression of our generic development of this MTP solution, which will be integrated in Zenon.
Yeah, thank you. I really got a good impression. It was pretty good what we have seen today here, and it's a perfect solution for all our customers. So even if you don't know what MTP is so far, you will learn it in the future and you can use it as we deliver a standard software.